Okay. Can I have the roll call, please?
Gibson,
Here.
Kapler,
Here.
Kulkarni,
Here.
Ormsby, Satterfield,
Here.
Stoltenberg,
Here.
Wendland.
Here. All right, thank you. We had meeting minutes from June 19th, 2019.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes from June 19th. A second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of June 19th, 2024. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the minutes are approved. So good evening and welcome everyone to the Plan and Zone Commission for July 17th. We're half the year ago already. We are a recommending body appointed by the City Council to review matters of planning, zoning, replats and such. We have several of those on the agenda tonight. We would love your input, and at the appropriate time, there's a podium to my right and to your left back there, and we will recognize the audience and ask you to state your name and your interest in the case, and we would love to hear that. And with that, we will begin. Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. First case on the agenda, 2334, has been postponed to the next scheduled meeting.
Yep.
Moving on to case 2432. 2432 is a final plat replat named Shadow Valley Edition. A bit of background on this case. The applicant is Scott Pierce, doing business as Blue Water Group. The final plat proposes a 5-lot subdivision and the vacation of public sidewalk easement. This is Valley Brook and Shadowbrook subdivisions. These are just south of Crow Creek Road, east of Middle Road, near Pleasant View Elementary School. The replat is of Lot 6 in Valley Brook Estates Edition, Lot 1 in Valley Brook Estates 3rd Edition, and Lots 3 and 4 in Shadowbrook Edition. I want to point out that there's 2 proposed changes from what's existing currently in the subdivision related to this replat. Number 1 is the lot split of Lot 1 in Valley Brook Estates 3rd Edition. So that's right where my cursor is right now. Proposals to keep the existing house but split off some of the land to create a new lot. The second proposed change is a public sidewalk easement connecting Shadowbrook and Ashworth Courts is proposed to be vacated. So there's a sidewalk currently going from this cul-de-sac all the way over to Ashworth Court. This is on private property, but is a public sidewalk easement, which future land use and zoning. The newly adopted future land use map as of last night is showing this area as neighborhood light. The current zoning is R1, single family residence. The proposed uses and plat are consistent with the future land use map and the current zoning. Taking a look at the proposed plat. We'll start with the lot split and give a quick analysis of that. Lots 1, 4, and 5, so 1, 4, and 5 up here, are to have the same configuration as currently. They're included in the plat due to the vacation of that public sidewalk easement. Down here, lots 2 and 3 in Valley Brook Estates, I believe there's a typo here. That's lot 1 of the current Valley Brook Estates 3rd Edition. That's where the lot split is occurring. The current lot is 64,000 square feet. The proposed lots would be 48,000 square feet where the current house is roughly, and 19,000 square feet, almost 20,000 square feet. All the proposed lots in this replat meet the bulk standards for the R1 zoning district. A bit of a history. Valley Brook Estates, as originally platted, contained 14 lots of varying sizes. Large lots were planned north of Valley Brook Drive and Shadowbrook Drive, with smaller lots along Pigeon Creek. So lots 12, 13, 11, 9, and 10, they have a developable area that's much smaller, and then they are attached to an outlot due to the Pigeon Creek floodplain. I want to note that lots 7 and 8 of the original edition were flipped. So now you have a smaller lot to the south and the larger lot to the north, and that is what Valley Brook Estates 3rd Edition is, and that's what's currently on the record. I do want to note the proposed addition, or the proposed plat and split, that 19,000 square feet is of similar size to some of these lots that were replatted over time. Valley Brook Estates 4th Edition, Included 2 lots of those smaller developable areas and then the attached outlots. This is just one of the subsequent replats of the original Valley Brook Estates. Valley Brook Estates 5th edition also took a lot and configured it into 2 lots with outlots in the floodplain. Taking a look at the original grading, erosion, stormwater this is how it was designed and graded. This exists today, the contours and the topography. So the first edition's grading, like I said, mostly exists today, and stormwater flows really run north to south to Pigeon Creek. The area in question where that new lot would be, right around where my cursor is, there is topography flowing water down to the road where there's a catch basin that contains all that water, and then it has infrastructure that would flow it down to Pigeon Creek. So that exists today. That's how the water flows. Any new development that would be on a new lot would have to follow Iowa drainage laws. That means you can't put water on other people's property, and that exists even if you're not going through a plat today. If you have an existing house, and our city engineer can answer further questions on that. But this is pretty typical for a subdivision of a residential subdivision. Taking a look at the vacation of the public walkway, the proposed replat shows a vacation of the 20-foot public walkway easement. So 2 lots in Valley Brook Edition contain the easement. That's that 3rd edition right here, lot 1 of it. And then there's the one in I believe, the original edition. And then the neighboring Shadowbrook Edition contains 2 lots as well. Can circle this one. And that's the 20-foot easement right there. The walkway was established in the original design of each subdivision, was approved, planning and zoning, approved by City Council, 1989, I believe. And it was also included in subsequent replats of these additions. Public sidewalks do exist on city right-of-ways. Those city streets have sidewalks on both sides. Those are maintained as far as like construction is inspected by the city, and the road's just the same. The easement in question, the sidewalk in question for vacation is on private property. Just want to make that point. Per Iowa Code Section 354.23, any land dedicated to the public can be vacated if deemed by the governing body to be of no benefit to the public. So that's the threshold per state code, which needs to be met to vacate any public land such as this public sidewalk easement. So I've laid out those 2 distinct actions being proposed with this plat. You have a subdivision, a split of a current lot into 2 smaller lots, and that vacation of the public walkway. Staff, having reviewed this, acknowledges there's many various recommendations that could be given to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'll lay those out. These recommendations, really, to summarize, is option 1 is to accept the plat as shown. That means vacating the public walkway easement, seeing that has no public benefit, and then also allowing the split of that lot because it meets code and is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Option 2 would be to recommend denial as submitted for the exact opposite reasons, that there is a public benefit and that the proposed lot split is not consistent with the comprehensive plan for character reasons. Option 3 would be recommend approval of the subdivision, but not the vacation of the public easement. And option 4 would be to recommend Option 4 would be recommend approval of the easement, but not the subdivision. So variations of that, and I can take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Taylor. Appreciate the presentation. Mark, anything to add from staff since presentation or publication?
No, I nothing to add from staff. I think City Attorney Chris Curry might want to just help guide you through some of the legal questions we have here, because this is not one that comes up very often, and I think he's prepared a couple remarks on that.
Thank
Please,
you. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Mark. And this is, I think, a good, this is an example of a variety of laws and standards and contracts coming together. So I guess I just kind of wanted to clarify the issues. I think Taylor's done a nice job of sort of summarizing the lot split from the vacation and the standard for vacation of this easement. So I think, that's in Iowa code about vacating a public, an easement that was dedicated to the public would require a finding by the governing body, your recommendation, ultimately council, that the easement has no benefit to the public. This easement was created, as Taylor said, when the original plat was recorded that had a walkway easement. And per Iowa Code 354-19, that the recording of that subdivision plat showing an access or walkway easement is a dedication to the public. So that's where the no public benefit issue comes into play. Of course, we have, an easement is just a right to access or use somebody's property. And that's what the issue is before this body, is the easement, the ability to use that property. Upon that easement was a sidewalk. And that was created in 1989 or whenever this subdivision was developed. And as I understand it, when that was developed, there was a homeowners association and restrictive covenants that were put in place along with the development of this subdivision. I just want to be clear, a homeowners association is not something that the city is a party to or a member of, and not really something that is before this body. Homeowners Association in Iowa is a nonprofit corporation. And just like any corporation, you have certain corporate formalities that you need to follow. You need to file a biannual report. You need to have at least annual meetings, minutes of the meeting, all of those formalities. And if that doesn't take place, oftentimes there would be an administrative dissolution or a voluntary dissolution if the members of that corporation don't want that to exist anymore. One of the things that a homeowners association does typically is to enforce restrictive covenants. And so those covenants, use restrictions on how you can use your property. So the HOA would typically enforce those. An easement is not a use restriction. So if the covenants, which are contracts, it's a contract that typically the owners of property in the subdivision would be party to that contract. The city is not a party to that contract. And an easement is not a use restriction. So those covenants, and stop me if it is somewhat complicated, but the covenants expire after 21 years unless they are renewed. So the easement is not one of those things that would expire, but that does oftentimes happen. And I don't know exactly what has happened in this neighborhood, but I think like a lot of neighborhoods, HOAs may not, there's disagreement or an HOA may go away because certain corporate formalities weren't followed. Covenants may expire. In this case, this is a very unusual sidewalk because it's not a city-owned sidewalk. Most sidewalks in the city are in city right-of-way. All of the sidewalks that are on that aerial there that are along the public streets are in city right-of-way and are owned by the city. And we have an ordinance in the city that requires the abutting property owner to maintain that sidewalk. So that's per ordinance. The particular sidewalk at issue here is unlike those other sidewalks that are city-owned. This is a privately owned sidewalk in an easement that was dedicated to the public. I realize that it's
an oxymoron. You're
it's
giving me an
confusing. It's
oxymoron here, yeah.
confusing, but it was the issue at hand is the easement, and the easement, to vacate that easement, the standard is there no longer a benefit to the public? I understand that this sidewalk has been removed.
Correct.
That does not remove the easement. The question for the board or for the commission and ultimately council is whether the easement should go away. And the standard there is whether there's a benefit to the public. If in the future, the subdivision, the HOA or the owners decide to put another sidewalk in the easement, if the easement is not vacated, they could do that. I just want to be clear, I think we do need to distinguish the sidewalk from the easement. The easement is a right to use that property. And so this is unusual because you've got an HOA. I think there's confusion as to what the bylaws of that, whether it exists, what the bylaws are, what covenants exist or don't exist. Those are all issues that really are not relevant to your decision. When it comes to the sidewalk, to the easement, we've gone over the standard there. And then I think the separate issue that Taylor went through of the subdivision, that's really subject to our subdivision ordinance and the bulk standards of the zoning ordinance. So I just wanted to clarify the difference between HOA and the covenants, the fact that those are not city issues. Those are for the owners in that subdivision to work through. So, any questions?
I do have one question. If there is an easement in place, regardless of what's on that easement, then the property owner has to allow access to that easement to the public.
That's right.
They can't restrict it with a fence or a sign or limit people's use of it.
It's an easement granting access
To
for
that
a
space.
walkway to the public.
Whether it's paved or not.
That's right.
Okay.
My question's kind of along the same lines. And you may have said this, I apologize, but who establishes that easement?
It was established
By the
by the developer.
It's
when-
proposed
when
by-
Yeah, the original easement,
The original easement
when the plat was recorded in 1989
by the developer.
by the
So
developer.
I can touch, this was the original,
The developer's request? Because it's not utility, it's not right away.
I think it was both it was proposed by the developer and it was acquiesced by the planning, zoning, and
Thank you.
city council at the time, so it was, and we did research the minutes and it was acknowledged. I don't know, but it was proposed and approved as is, and that was on the plat.
And because it's on a plat, it's not like an HOA covenant that would expire.
That's
The
right. It's-
easement.
The easement would not. That's very clear under Iowa code.
And it's been in place since the beginning.
Think about if we had easements that expired, then we would have sewer pipes that we could no longer access, and that would make no sense.
And just to be clear, by plat, is it required to be concrete or a sidewalk, paved, bricked, something? By plat.
The plat just calls out.
This is not the most recent
A
plat.
walkway and utility easement is what the plat says.
Thank you.
Doesn't get into a lot of detail about the easement.
But we think it was always meant to be a sidewalk, that
That
easement.
was the original intent. I mean, the maintenance, the maintenance of it, of the sidewalk, was an HOA issue. The HOA was to ensure that property, maintain the property. That's why this is different. And if it's a city-owned sidewalk, the city has some obligation. Here, the obligation is the HOA. The HOA, there's confusion, I think there's disagreement perhaps about whether the HOA exists or when what version of the HOA exists.
But that's not
And
relevant
that's
to
not,
our
that's
decision.
not our issue, but that might, it might inform what happened here.
But that's not really
It's not
relevant to our
relevant to your.
discussion or
Not,
decision.
in my view, it's not.
Okay.
And the sidewalk's gone. It wasn't maintained and now it's gone, but the easement remains, obviously.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so as we take testimony and hear from members of the audience tonight, I think as a decision-making body, Chris has counseled you very well. It's about zoning code, state of Iowa law relative to easements. If there are issues with HOA, if there's issues with covenants, those need to be settled by those parties in whatever method is appropriate, but this is not the appropriate method to settle those.
So back to what Ann was saying, if the easement's there, it's on the plat, it's supposed to be there based on the plat, but there's nothing that says we have anything to do with whether it's mud, concrete, gravel. That's outside of our purview. All we're deciding is whether the easement should stay
there
or not,
Right.
plus the other issue. Thank you.
I think that's correct.
And Chairman, I'd like to add that we did, staff did receive public written comment, and both against various aspects of this proposal and some for. Just want to mention that now it's been included, provided to you, and it's part of the record.
Yeah, and just, thank you for that, Taylor. I'll just note, rather than read them all, they are all part of the record, but I'll just note that we had, I'll just quickly tabulate them. Jonathan Winston, June 7th, Elizabeth Winston, June 7th, Jonathan Winston, July 6th, Elizabeth Winston, July 9th. Bear with me. Ed Delau and Darcy Peterson, July 10th. Fred Dodds, July 10th. Joel Wright, July 11th. Bear with me. Frank Zucker, July 11th. Bonnie Bryant, July 12th. Russell Campbell, July 12th. Anna Zack, July 12th. There's a Mike and Anna Stetcher, so that might be the same. Borchardt, I don't have the first name there, bear with me for a second. James Borchardt family, July 16th. So those were the letters that I have that will be included in the record for that.
And we all received copies.
And we have
of
all
those
received,
letters.
and I've read, so, yeah. I assume all of you had as well. So with that extra insight, comments and questions with regard to this matter from the commission, please.
I'm gonna wait.
So I'll start, I'll break the ice. Standard for vacation, no longer a benefit to the public. In the 17 years that I've done this, I've never been asked to determine if there's a benefit to the public. So this is new territory for me. I don't know what standard I use to determine whether or not there's a benefit to the public. Is it one person a month or 10 a day or? I'm struggling with where that, how do I make that decision? Because I have to make that decision in order to recommend or not to the city council whether they should approve or disapprove the plat. So that's where I'm struggling.
Well, I think that's where the testimony that you'll hear will help you make that decision. You know, I think in looking at and giving meaning to each word in the statute, the word "no benefit" seems to have a certain
Certainty to it.
It seems to be a high bar.
Yeah,
That's for you to decide, but that is the exact language from the statute.
and that's, just so I'm clear, that's differentiating between the existence of the easement or not, or vacating the easement versus the physical presence of concrete on the property.
Correct.
Okay,
And Chairman, just to add a little more information regarding that decision, I did mention there are sidewalks existing on all streets in both of these, we'll call them both subdivisions in the area. Depending where you are going, that's the key point there. If you were to walk using the public sidewalk this direction, say you're going to the school, as we might assume that might be utilized for, the distance going to that sidewalk or going to the public right-of-way, I believe the difference is 100 or 200 feet. Obviously, though, if you're going from that subdivision, that cul-de-sac, to maybe a destination in that cul-de-sac, that's going to increase your distance a lot more. So that's just kind of some
Great minds think alike. So I actually went on Google Earth trying to understand the dynamics of what we were talking about and some grasp of good public use. So I just went on and I scaled it off using their measuring tool. And if I started it, and I did it two different ways, two routes, two different ways. So one starting at the center line of the cul-de-sac on Shadowbrook, if you put a little dot there, center line of the, right there. I started there, and then I went down and around on the road up to, it's not on this map, the entrance to the sidewalk that goes to the school. And that was 1,474 feet, okay? Then I did the same thing, starting at the center line of the cul-de-sac and going directly to the east to Ashworth Court, up around Ashworth Court, across the street and down to that same point. That was 1,273 feet. So there was a 200-foot difference if I went straight across versus looped around. And then I did one starting, drop down, I don't know what that other street is right there. Is it Shadowbrook Drive?
correct.
Shadowbrook Drive, same route going to the south up to that sidewalk. That was 1,242 feet. And then I took, and I'll give you my rationale for that in a minute, that same route going from there up to the north to the sidewalk easement, and that was 1,492 feet going up and around. So it's actually longer. So when I was trying to quantify, if this all makes sense, the benefit or not to the public, the impact I see is on the 5 houses in that cul-de-sac, one of which I think is participating in this. So there's 4 houses that would actually benefit directly for kids walking to school. Look at that and say, hey, there's a subdivision back in 89 or 90, they put a sidewalk in, and probably the idea was, hey, the kids can walk to school. Anybody else in the subdivision walking to school, especially from the west, would have a shorter distance going the southern route and not using the sidewalk than the northern route. I don't know that that quantifies as the public benefit to have 5 houses, but there is a benefit to those 5 houses. The other houses, it's shorter to walk to school going the southern route. So that's a data point I came up with trying to figure out, okay, what do I put my finger on here? And that's as smart as I get about that. Did that help anybody with any perspective? I don't
Makes a
know.
lot of sense.
So that's to prime the pump in the discussion.
Roy, looking at the map, that adds 4 more houses because the 2 houses closest to Crow Creek, it would be quicker for them to walk right up to the sidewalk on Crow Creek and down to school.
Right.
And maybe even the first 4 houses, in which case it would only be adding 2 more houses. Saying all that, kids are kids. They're going to take the route they want to take.
Shortest route between 2 points is a straight line.
Every
They don't
winter,
check the plat for easements, by the way, either, so, but,
Don't check Google for this distance
yeah,
either.
yeah, but,
they don't. I see footprints in the snow between my house and my neighbor's house all winter long, so I know that the kids get to the bus going between the yards. No sidewalk, no easement.
other thoughts on this from the commission?
What happens to the easement if you approve the subdivision, but you say it doesn't meet the standard to, for 0 value to vacate it?
So in that proposal or that recommendation, the easement would stay and you'd be approving or on condition that the easement remain and that the subdivision, the split would be shown. So it'd be prior to going to council, or that'd be a recommendation, yeah.
If
that-
it remains, somebody could put a sidewalk on it if they chose to.
Right.
If this HOA, which is not our problem, figured it out. But right now, it's just a goat path. This is dirt, right?
Yeah.
I haven't been out there, but
So,
just dirt.
Lynn, that's kind of how I was looking at it, that at the onset of the development, it was deemed important for the public good to have an easement there and to put a sidewalk on it. It's not a public sidewalk, so the owners have chosen to remove it, but the easement is still there. Without a sidewalk, it isn't as inviting for people to, they don't see it as a path necessarily. But by leaving the easement there, it maintains that option that in the future, if it were deemed important or necessary or for the public good to pave it again, that opportunity is there. And without that, the threshold is high. I agree with Chris's analogy there. So if there's no sidewalk, but the easement's on the plat, that opportunity is still there.
But does the lack of vacation keep this subdivision from moving forward, or this replat from moving forward?
They would have to amend this is just the recommending body, so they'd
Yeah.
have to amend it. That would be a recommendation. Or, I guess there's an option if council would disagree with you, there's that route, but that's what Chris talked about.
It could still move forward even without the vacation of that. I mean,
They'd have to amend what's shown.
assuming
Correct.
everybody agrees
Yeah.
to it.
That's your number 3, right, basically?
Yeah, what's shown right here, no different than if there's a condition on a plat, when you make a recommendation or staff makes a recommendation, they have to amend this plat prior to going to council or that's what usually happens, yes.
So to be clear, all four of those options, well, I guess one of them is, all four of those options move this to the next stage, which is city council.
And we haven't touched on the other dimension of it, but it says utility easement. So theoretically, somebody could put some kind of utility through there too, right, in the future?
Occupied at this point,
It's unoccupied,
unoccupied by utility that we're aware of.
But could it?
but given that there's a utility easement, could somebody use that in the future for a,
Yes,
Brent?
so it's kind of a two-part vacation, so the sidewalk would be one item. All the utility companies would have to sign off on vacating the utility aspect of it as well. They have to sign all plats to begin with.
Right.
But yes, if one of them decided that they would like to retain that right in the future, they could refuse to sign, in which case we would not be able to record.
record? Yeah. Okay. Others from the commission?
Well, we're having a lot of discussion about the easement, but not about the replat. Do we want to talk about that as well?
Anything's fair game here.
It's all a nice big package.
I'd like to hear from the public first.
Okay.
Okay, any comments from anyone before we get to the
I don't have
audience?
any questions about it. It's pretty straightforward.
All right. So this is the opportunity for people in the audience. If you'd like to speak on this matter, blue shirt gets to go first. You get the discount.
All right, thanks for having us. I'm John Winston. I think you read two of my
I,
letters. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
So I'm the house that's like 3 down in that cul-de-sac. So if you go 1 up there, yep, that's me
There,
right there.
okay.
Yep, exactly. So we have 2 kids in the local school, and prior to this whole situation developing, they use the sidewalk all the time. Not only them, but the whole neighborhood, they use the sidewalk all the time. So there was definitely benefit. If there wasn't benefit, nobody would be using it. Even if there was no sidewalk, it would still be benefit because it'll be grass. It's like a gentle slope. It's not dangerous. It's a nice place to walk. So for my 2 cents, I would say it definitely provides me and my family benefit. And then, are we also talking about the replat right now? Okay.
Sure, yep, you bet.
So for the replat, it's kind of an odd shaped, I don't know if we have a picture of that.
He's gonna, there you
Yeah,
go.
it's kind of like a triangular shaped plot there. And the square footage of that, I understood was similar to the ones across the road on Pigeon Creek, I think you guys were saying, in terms of square footage. But the shape of it, I don't know, it's a little awkward. Also, as was mentioned before, a lot of the storm runoff comes right through there. And right across the street there, they're already getting erosion from runoff. I'm not sure what their address is, but if you go literally just across the street there, yeah, right in there, yep, they already have erosion already from runoff. So I'd be concerned if you were to build something and have even more runoff. I don't know how that would be handled. Second, I don't know how close to property lines the new building would be built. I'm not sure what ordinances are in Bettendorf, but I would imagine that whatever's built there is going to be significantly out of feel with the rest of the neighborhood. So for that reason, again, it doesn't fit with the neighborhood, so I'd also be against that. But, yep, thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it. And then just for a little follow-up, and maybe we'll do it real time, Brent, can you address, you had mentioned, or Mark had about stormwater mitigation for new developments. So if this lot were to be developed in the future, what that would entail?
Yeah, so by city code, this would not be required to provide any stormwater detention. So the applicability standards for our stormwater detention have a threshold of either 1 acre of disturbed area, which the lot was 20,000 square feet, so that would be under an acre, or 10,000 square foot of impervious surface. Without seeing a house plan, we wouldn't be able to tell if that threshold was hit. On a 19,000 square foot lot, it almost certainly would not be. If you figure a 3,000 square foot house, 1,000 square foot garage, and maybe another 1,000 square foot for a driveway, you know, you're still gonna be half that threshold. So by city code, detention would not be required. We do have, the only option that we have is that at my discretion, you can require water quality volume to be addressed. It really, that part of the code was not really intended for situations like that. It was meant for downtown, is why that was inserted. Areas where we don't have detention, we've got a lot of impervious surface, and you know, if there's ways when something redevelops that we can add a little bit of detention, that's really what that was meant for. This subdivision has no detention. Neither of them do. They both predate our detention requirements. So I think it would be maybe a bit onerous to try to impose that on a single lot when none of the other lots have that component to them, and the subdivisions themselves did not. But that is at least an option. It's the only option we have by code.
Okay, and are we aware from a city standpoint, and when I say we, you, engineering, of any issues relative to flooding that were mentioned? Is that anything on your radar?
Not on my radar, but you know, you can see the terrain there. Obviously, we've got a flared end section that exists on the north side of Shadowbrook Drive right there. I think it's 5960 is the address. You know, they sit at the lowest point for that, really that entire area between Shadowbrook Court and Ashworth Court. All of that drainage runs down through that area, hits that flared end, enters our storm sewer system, and that takes it all the way to the south property line of 5955, which is on the south side of Shadowbrook Drive, and discharges into the creek back there. Or what does eventually, it doesn't hit right directly to the creek, but that's actually city-owned property back there for McLemore Park.
So where's the erosion actually taking place?
I would assume it has to be at that outfall because the rest of it's a sealed system. So it's piped all the way through to that south property line. So I'm sure it's at that outfall, which is unfortunately very common when you've got outfalls up against creeks. It's something that we run across all the time.
Yeah.
Can
Okay,
I
who's
ask a
next
question?
in the audience?
Can I ask a
Yes, sir.
question?
What? Oh, sure, yeah.
So the way the contours are showing, water flows overland across this part that's going to be apportioned as a separate lot, right?
Correct. Yep.
You're not supposed to put water from your site onto an adjacent site.
So Taylor said that earlier. That's not quite correct. You can't redirect water where it wasn't already going.
Okay.
As Iowa drainage laws. So that water is already flowing down to that property. Unfortunately, with them being the lower property, they're a subservient property, they're required to accept all that runoff.
Okay, so they are required to basically maintain that
Yeah,
easement, for
by
lack of
law
a
and
better
code,
being.
you could put a house there. They would have to obviously keep that water away from the house. If you look back through the history of the topography there, that's exactly what most of the houses in between Shadowbrook and Ashworth had to do.
Okay.
That whole area just like they were showing, all drain right to that point. Those houses also had to redirect some of that flow to keep it away from themselves, get it to the drainage way. This house would be afforded the same opportunity.
So they'd have a river back there during.
Yeah, they'd have to swale out and around the house. Yep.
Right.
I have a question. On that same note, when this new home comes into play, there's going to be more runoff that's going to come through there. So is there any mitigation that needs to be done by the homeowner of the new lot, or does that just stay the way it is?
No, so that would be the applicability standards, that they're not required to provide detention because it's under that
Yeah.
threshold. The amount of runoff, those pipes are all sized for that entire acreage as, that's currently going there right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir, in the blue. I think it's blue. You're our next guy.
Popular color. My name's Joel Wright, and I'm a neighbor in the area as well. And regarding the sidewalk,
Can we put you on the map so we just got perspective for you?
sure, I'm on Valley Brook Drive, left of there. It's under
That area.
the,
Just off the map.
Okay, farther to the west, and you're in part of Valley Brook, though.
yes.
Okay.
And one point on the sidewalk that I'd like to make is that I've worked in traffic control for 13 years, signalized intersections, and walkability of cities. And Bettendorf has done a fantastic job of making the city more walkable and, you know, much easier to get around and be social. And so, as a bit of background, the homeowners association covenants did expire, and yet the homeowners association continued to exist for a while. In the month that it took to get that on record at the county, one of the houses was sold. So that evolved into the four homes that are proposing a new subdivision, elected not to participate in the neighborhood's effort to reform a new association, which would have continued to provide an avenue to fund the sidewalk maintenance and the snow removal and so forth. And so when you look at the threshold of, does this provide a public benefit? The four people that are proposing to subdivide voluntarily didn't join their respective associations, which would have provided that mechanism, and therefore took away the public benefit for the rest of us. So I would just make that point, and by doing so, it decreases the walkability, you know, whether it's for future kids or Jonathan's kids today, or us walking our dogs. And, you know, when we had an elderly dog and we wanted to visit people and we needed to cut our walk short, we would use the sidewalk because it was shorter back to our house. And as Jonathan pointed out, you know, the sidewalk provided public benefit because people used it until the sign was put up that we were not to trespass. So I would encourage the commission to reject the removal of the easement for those reasons. What the neighborhood decides and can figure out to do, you know, putting a sidewalk back in is a whole nother story, and that's not your problem. I'd also like to make a point about the staff recommendation and specifically the sizes of the lots. There were two subdivisions that were made, Valley Brook and Shadow Brook. And the Valley Brook lots, while yes, many of our lots, including mine, have an outlot, you know, in general, the spacing of the homes is such that most of the homes have an acre or more. And this proposed subdivision of the lot that creates a 0.4 or something acre lot, from our perspective as homeowners and residents, that it would not be of similar character to at least the half of the neighborhood that we bought into, which is the Valley Brook. So for that reason, I'd ask you to please not recommend either of the elements in this replat, which is option number 2.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
I'm going to ask if there's anybody before I let you go a second time. So someone else in the audience. Okay.
Behind,
I'll take you next.
Thanks for listening to us. I'm Chris Bryant. I live in the house right next to the Winstons to the north. There you go, right there, right in the middle of the cul-de-sac. We had children, younger children, both attended the primary school next door, and they use the sidewalk constantly. They're all grown up now and moved, but we're also going to be leaving at some point, and we would hope that a young family would come in. Kids for that family are going to need sidewalk to get to the school. Plus, older people like myself use it constantly when we're walking for exercise, walking our dogs. So it is used a lot. I mean, I was talking to my wife, Bonnie, about how many people use that a day. She couldn't say because she's not there. I can't either, really, but I know it's quite a few. It's a lot more than just the kids. And as far as the issues with walking on that sidewalk is concerned, for the children, it not only is it a shorter distance, maybe 250 feet, doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it is a lot safer. If they're walking on the sidewalks, either the one to the north, which is north of my house, which is along Crow Creek Road, or if they're walking around Valley Drive that turns into Shadowbrook Drive, they've got cars running. If you look at the sidewalk, especially on Shadowbrook, if you look at the sidewalks compared to where the cars are driving, they're very close. And like one of the gentlemen said, he had kids' footprints all over his backyard. Well, you can't keep kids on sidewalks all the time. And they've got cars to contend with on both ways, going both directions to the school. So I think that should also be a bit of a safety concern. And quite frankly, we've had some issues with potential predators driving around the neighborhood at night, driving on those roads, Valley Drive and on Crow Creek, which concern many of the young parents in our neighborhood. So kids being able to take a safe route in between 4 homes with no exposure to traffic is important to us. So I would hope you might take that into consideration.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
And then as far as the replat's concerned, I know there's been some discussion about it so far. I put a little bit of numbers to this idea of the size of the lot and the drainage and all those things. And I just wanted to share those with you if I could real quickly. The proposed lot is going to be 19,982 square feet. That is, by far would be the smallest lot, and it'd be less than half the size of the next smallest lot in the Valley Brook development. And if you haven't been there before, there's a clear delineation between Valley Brook and Shadowbrook. I mean, we're all neighbors, we're all friendly, but as far as the size of the houses are concerned, the average square footage of the house in the Valley Brook, our side of the development, is 3,219 feet. The average size of the houses on the Valley Brook side, on the Shadowbrook side, is just over 2,300 feet. So the houses on our side are somewhat larger, the lots are somewhat larger, and I think that had, at least I know for us, it had an appeal. The lots being larger, the houses being a little bit farther apart, what was a selling point for us when we moved into the area. We had 3 children. We have a fairly sizable backyard where we could play football and jarts and all that, all the games kids like to play. So that was a real selling point for us. And we believe, my wife and I believe at least, that making a small lot like this does 2 things. One, it like John said, it is not in keeping with the neighborhood in general. That's the first thing. And secondly, if you look at the ratio of the home size to the lot size for the existing development, it's about the square footage size of the houses are about 7 to 8% of the square footage of the lot itself. Okay? If you put this, if you take that, that mathematic and apply it to a 19,000 square foot lot, you're gonna have a 1,500 square foot house compared to an average of 3,200 square feet in the houses that are existing right now. I would take some, I would have a concern about the staff recommendation that you can fit a house into that lot that fits the aesthetics, if you will, of the Valley Brook development. So that's one concern. Maybe not a great concern to a lot of people, but it is a concern to the homeowners there. Secondly, if you look at the lot, if you look at the lot that we're talking about replatting, that triangular sliver to the south of there, right there. If you look at that lot, it is the lowest, I'm not an engineer, but it appears to be the lowest part of the development north of Shadowbrook Drive, Valley Brook Drive. It is, you can, without being an engineer, you can tell that that is a designed area for water to flow. And it flows in now, there's a catch basin there, and seems to work fairly well. But if you look at the lot level, they're gonna have to put a significant amount of fill, in my opinion, put a significant amount of fill in that lot in order to put a house on it and have it at the street level, which every other house is at street level in the development. So if you fill that lot in and not impinge on the neighbor to the next door, to the south, to the east, you're gonna have to put up a retaining wall. You can't do it any other way. You're gonna have to have a retaining wall there. And when you do, you narrow the size, the scope of which the water can flow from there to there. And when you do that, not only is that water level gonna rise, again, I'm not an engineer, but I'm getting to my point. That water is gonna rise, and the rate at which that water flows is gonna increase. So what I'm asking is this: at the very least, before the commission makes a decision, if you could do two things for us. One, ask the gentleman who wants to do the development to give you a plan as to where the fill's gonna go, where the retaining wall's gonna go, and where the house is gonna go. Then, based upon that plan, have a hydrology report done so that we know that when the flow of water changes because of the changes they make to that lot, it's not going to impact everybody, the neighbor directly to the southeast and the neighbors across the street who are already suffering from erosion because of the water flow. If you see clear to do that, those two things for us, have the plan put together and with a house on it, and once you have the plan, doing a hydrology report for us so that we feel confident that the water flow, the change in water flow is not going to impact the neighborhood adversely. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Brent, can you just address for a minute what we can and can't require from a residential standpoint for development? Once a plat's in, we can't condition a plat, I believe, a plat on the future.
We have never done that for a single-family lot. Again, we're talking, let's say roughly 3 to 4, maybe 4,500 square foot of impervious surface. You have probably 10 to 15 acres of drainage coming to that low point. He's correct that if, depending on where the house could go, you may end up with a retaining wall, an exposed foundation, but ultimately there are no drainage easements across any of these lots. So I don't have the ability to dictate the drainage through there. That pipe is sized for that area. We're not changing, we're not taking water from one drainage basin and putting it over the other. It's still got to flow through that low area. Any erosion that may be happening, again, that's a fully piped system. I'm looking at the outfall. That outfall is actually off that person's property. It's into the city's property. So if they're saying they're experiencing
Down by
erosion,
the creek?
it's on the city's property, not on theirs or on the park property there. I'd probably have to leave it up to Chris if you thought you could do it, but it's nothing we've ever done
But-
for a
but from
single-family
a
lot.
process, a typical process
yeah, that's where I'm
within plan
going.
and zone, to go back to Chris's question, the issue that we're looking at tonight is a replat. If there are questions about how the house sits on the lot, the drainage, that would come at a different time.
That's part of a building permit, but even as such, we don't require hydraulic analysis for a
Okay,
single-family home.
and we're not gonna see a site development plan for a
would not.
house.
Not for single
Right.
family.
No.
So all we can decide is what's before us, which is the replat. We can't require any additional information.
I mean, if there's something that you know, I mean, you always have the ability to table a matter before you if there's additional information that you want, whether we can condition an approval upon. We have no, they're not required to give a site plan. This is a residential subdivision. This is, this is subject to the typical subdivision replat standards of the balancing test that we've talked about, where you balance the owner with the neighborhood and the public interest and the impact on public infrastructure. That's the standard, and whether it conforms to the comprehensive plan, as Taylor put in his staff report. It's unusual in that it's contemplating dividing a lot in an existing subdivision. So I do think that part of that standard in Iowa code is to balance those interests and to determine whether it conforms to our comprehensive plan.
So the term neighborhood character has been used by several people. And I think we all have looked at enough of these plans. We know that everything about this second home meets city code. There isn't anything about that second lot that doesn't meet the city code. But how does it meet the character of the neighborhood?
Yeah, you have an established neighborhood, right? So
Yeah.
you need to think about that established neighborhood.
Right, and that neighborhood's been
Reflect
there
upon
for a
that.
long time, and I'm sure it would be a very nice house, and how does it fit the character of the neighborhood? To me, that,
If this were undeveloped land and this were a lot that you were just gonna split off.
Right.
Hadn't been developed yet, there's really no character yet.
Right.
You know, you have 30 years of character to
and it's a
consider.
very big lot, and it's clearly had a lot of rooftop developed on it. If the owner chose to put an outbuilding there, they probably could. It's the replatting of the lot that is the issue.
Well, I think the other thing I'm looking at too, right, character, when you look at the aerial and it's bigger and better looking over here, and it's a little tighter over there, not worse, different. This is the transition point. We're at the breaking point here between the two. So are we damaging the neighborhood inappropriately by putting one more lot in there that ties more to the right than to the left?
That's a good point, Roy.
Or are we looking at the way we look at, when we talk about even like a townhome association, that step down, that buffer.
Transitional, right.
As the point was made by Mr. Bryant, the difference in the size of the homes, size of lots on one side of the street versus the other. Also, with all due respect to a lovely neighborhood, is it our role to try and maintain everything that was going on 30 or 40 years ago? When people's desires, we don't know what the future holds. Do they want big lots? Well, we're assuming everybody wants a great big lot and a 3,000 square foot home. But what if their homeowner wants a smaller lot with 1,500 square feet? Or, and what they do with the retaining wall is out of our, unfortunately, that's not ours. I think we're making some assumptions that aren't ours to make, if that's the case.
Well, we shouldn't make assumptions about what's going to be developed there, but it would be subject to a building permit and everything else, and I'm making it up. I look at it and say, okay, it's a sloping lot. It looks ideal for a walkout. And you could have a beautiful wooded lot view in there. That would be attractive to somebody and still not offensive to the neighborhood, but utilizing the slope of the lot.
But we don't
I don't
know.
know.
Well, and I think, we're not setting precedent necessarily, but we'll see more of this. This is reflective of the desire to build homes in Bettendorf.
We haven't even said the word
Something-
ADU yet, but that's another whole thing coming down the pipe, but
We have other people that.
yeah, we do. And I promised the guy in the tie back there. I should have let the guy with the tie go first, but yeah. Dressed up to come. We had a,
My name's Ed DeLaw. We live at 4503 Valley Brook Drive. This is Darcy. I want to thank you for the ability to speak to you tonight, and also thank you for the service that you're providing. I know it's been a bit of a lengthy discussion so far. I used to be a planning and zoning commissioner in Blackhawk County, so I understand what you're going through. I appreciate that. I'll do the best I can. Some of what I will talk about might be a bit of a repeat, but I'll try and respect your time as best I can. First, want to say that I am opposed to the replat and the sidewalk easement change for the reasons, many of which have already been brought out and mentioned this evening. I purchased the home I live in about 7 years ago, and I purchased it because of what was already discussed a little bit, which is the character. There's a lot of openness, there are a lot of green spaces. The houses fit very well onto the properties, I think all of which, or most of which, are an acre or more. It provides a certain level of privacy and seclusion, and in some ways, it's a little bit like living in the country, but still in the city of Bettendorf. And so I don't want to see that go. And that's the way it's been for the last 30 years, or I think more than 30 years. Another concern I have is that if this replat is allowed, it opens the door to other replats in the same subdivision. And I wouldn't want to see that, because if someone whose property borders, say, Crow Creek Road would like to replat and put another house on there, then we've got more driveways that are going to put traffic out on Crow Creek Road. And I think that's the wrong thing to do for the neighborhood. I'm not saying that it would happen, but it does, by replatting this property, it does open the door, in my mind, to that possibility. We've had some discussion this evening about stormwater. I'm an engineer, but I'm not a hydraulic or environmental engineer. I do have a concern that the land is in a low spot, and that runoff would be a problem. And without an engineering study or assessment of some kind, I don't know how you can not take that into consideration. As for the legal statement about providing benefit to the community for the easement, people used to walk their dogs, people used to walk all the time to back and forth across the sidewalk that's no longer there. Children in the wintertime have a much safer, easier route to go, less that they're out in the elements. And I don't have children, we don't have children in our house that are of school age, but that doesn't mean that the next owners won't. And I heard a comment that said we should keep our options open with respect to leaving that easement in place, and I would agree with that. Lastly, I would request that you vote for the denial of the replat and the change in the easement. And if you have any questions, I'm open to that.
questions? Nope. Thank you, Ed, appreciate it. Okay, who's next? Okay, lady in the yellow.
I don't want to rehash, I'm Bonnie Bryant. I don't want to rehash what everybody said, but I would like to,
Where do you live, Bonnie?
She lives with me.
yeah. In the cul-de-sac.
I don't want to ask, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know.
Next to the Winstons in the cul-de-sac.
Sorry, couldn't resist.
I just briefly, like Chris said, we had 3 children use that sidewalk for 6 years between the three of them. And it does have a benefit. I don't know anybody in here that can say it didn't. And if that is the legal no public benefit, that is incorrect. Plus, Lynn, I can't really see your last name. I'm sorry by calling you your first name. You mentioned that the sidewalk was removed because of the condition, but that is not why they removed it. They said they removed it because it was of no public benefit. So that was not a correct statement. So anyway, I would vote to decline, to deny both. So.
Thank you, appreciate it. Who's next? Nobody? Yes, sir.
Fred Dodds, 4521 Shadowbrook Court. I'm the reason everybody else is here tonight. I'm the culprit. Lived in the neighborhood since 2015, so I was there before some others have. The Bryants were there, I think, ahead of us, and Joel and his house. So the rest are new to the neighborhood. I'll be 80 next year. That's got advantages and disadvantages. One is that I'm around all the time, so I get to see what happens in the neighborhood every day when these people are off to work. So I know actually how the traffic flows. I know how water flows. I've been on everybody's property because I help take down trees, help get stumps removed on their property, all kinds of things. So I think the problem here tonight is that everything is based on some assumptions, as you said. An assumption that we're going to build a house. I mentioned a couple of years ago at a cul-de-sac party, we were looking for a smaller space because we need to downsize. I currently have a 6,000 square foot house, so if I built next to it, I'm not going to build something that's going to look ridiculous and ruin the value of the house that I now live on, because someday I'm going to sell it. So if I built something next to it, it would fit in the neighborhood, which is kind of an interesting point too, because if you go up to the cul-de-sac and you look at the houses there from the street, they're all jammed in. Now, they may have an acre behind them, but they have a front yard that looks like a quarter-acre lot. In fact, I stepped off the Winstons to the Bryants, and from the Winstons line to the corner of the Bryant's house is about 30 feet. So, as you said earlier, somewhere the smaller lots end and the larger ones begin. This will be the next smaller lot before the next ones begin. So if it's legal to create a new lot and fits with city code, and we're not violating any of those conditions, I don't see why we can't go ahead with that. The pathway, there was a little bit of misinformation. It said that there were 4 people that didn't want to join the HOA, only 2 in that area along the sidewalk. The other 2 are in a different addition. They're in Shadowbrook. They have nothing to do with our HOA. Our HOA is 15 houses, and 5 of us opted not to join, and the other 3 houses are down next to Joel's area. So there's just like a neighborhood. We didn't agree on some things, and so we decided not to join. In the original HOA, it said that the original owners who put the sidewalks in, they did it on the condition that the HOA would maintain and indemnify it. And when we found out, we asked if we if they knew HOA was going to do that, and they said they weren't sure about the insurance coverage at the time. So we opted not to join. And then we found out that later that the only way that they would indemnify it is to try to rejoin again, which, we hadn't decided to do. In the meantime, the other lot, Taylor, can you point out where Carson is? Right behind me. Okay. That sidewalk was put in after they constructed, the Zimmermans built a house. They put the sidewalk in, and now the easement of the sidewalk, you go 10 feet from the center, or the property border, is within 6 feet of that house. They just bought that house. And if you go on the sidewalk and you want to stand there and look in their family room window, you can do that, and people have done that. We're not sure if it's people in our area, could be people from another neighborhood. Anyway, it's a personal intrusion, and since we own, it's our private property, Scott decided he was gonna take his out regardless because he didn't have anything to do with our HOA. He was in a totally different area. So if he was gonna take the sidewalk out, why would I keep mine? It was a sidewalk to nowhere. So he comes under different jurisdiction than what I do, and he has a different problem because of how close it is to his house. The traffic, I'm out there every day. These people know I cut my own grass, I do my own weeds, I do everything on my property. And when we first moved there, we used to have some chairs along the sidewalk, and we liked being there because people would come through and we were new, and we'd invite them to have a glass of wine with us, and we got to know the neighborhood that way. The neighborhood's changed, and we have different people in the neighborhood now, and actually we like it being private. So the fact that it's convenient for some, it definitely is convenient for the Winstons because they have the two boys. I also invite Dr. Winston and his boys to bring their scooters and go around my driveway. You can see I have a circle driveway, and I invite them all the time, and they do that. In fact, John goes up and down the sidewalk with his scooter. But Liz takes the kids to school in the morning and at night, and I can tell you what time of the day that is. And depending on who her friends are on Shadowbrook, she goes the other way many times. Well, one of her friends moved now, so, which way she decides to go to school, I guess just depends on her schedule that day. Others they seem like they come through here a lot and walk their dogs and stuff. They don't. They go down the cul-de-sac, they go up around Crow Creek. I mean, I'm there, I get to see it. They know I get to see it. So the other thing, I'm also the one that, because I'm around, I put out a notification if I see a strange car in the neighborhood. And frankly, if your kids are gonna go up the sidewalk up to the other cul-de-sac, there could be a car waiting up there and say, oh, hey, wanna see the puppy in my car? If it happens down below, a kid can run to a house much quicker and get help much sooner. So the safety issue, I think, is kind of over this also. We have a bigger problem over by the school with the kids going back and forth from the school and getting in the cars over there. Let's see, what else? Again, I say all these complaints are based on an assumption that we're going to build a house. At 80, I don't really have a plan, and the older I get, probably the less chance that would maybe build there. We maybe would just keep it, sell the other house, and just go over there and sit and have a picnic in the old neighborhood because everybody's so friendly. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Anyone else with regard to this matter?
Hi, my name is Benjamin. I'm from Townsend Engineering. I wanted to talk a little bit about just the lot itself. It's 19,000 square feet being proposed, a little bit more than that. If you look to the east, there are quite a few lots that are smaller down at that 0.4 level, and that's about where we would be at. We're a little bit larger than those lots. The lot width, we're talking about the size of it. Yeah, it's a little bit different shape, but the lot width at the building set or at the curve line is 117 foot, I believe is the chord length there. When you go back to the building setback line, that's about 110 foot across there, and that's good enough width to build a lot. I think for R1 zoning, it's like 70 foot is the minimum requirement there. So we feel pretty confident that if the owner did want to develop a lot, there's plenty of real estate available to build something there, and it would be a transition between the neighborhoods that was brought up before. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Anyone else in the audience with regard to this matter? Last call, back to the commission then.
What do you want to have next? More discussion?
Whatever's necessary to get us to a motion.
Well, I think I can say where I'm at right now. I'm not going to make a motion. I just want to state my
let's chat.
opinion. I feel like the replat is within all of the city parameters. I like your rationale of the transition to the next development. I don't have any opposition to that. I think the threshold of no public benefit to vacate the easement has not been met. And so I would want to retain that easement and have the right-of-way available to people, even though it's not a paved sidewalk. That's where I sit on the issue right now. And I don't know what number that is, 1 through 4, but.
Number 3, I think
Number
it
3,
was.
okay.
I'm of like mind. The replat is what it is.
Right.
And the easement is something we shouldn't touch as a commission. That's out of ours. Let someone else figure that out.
I concur.
We're giving our opinion, so do I.
The easement's a touchy one. Just, Mr. Dodds brought up the insurance, and I was waiting for somebody to bring that up.
Liability.
So I understand why you would not want that easement there, because the insurance, somebody has to maintain it if it's there. But I'm on the fence with it, and a simple push with everyone else up here deciding that, hey, let someone else deal with it. If that came in front of us and all the utility companies had already signed off, and then maybe I'd be pushed the other way, but that's not the case, so.
We might be helping them out in the future as far as from an argument and some ugliness coming from an HOA perspective, but that's not our job.
Right, agreed. Yeah.
Completely vacating it takes the problem away, but I don't think that's in in this group's power.
Agreed.
Right.
I will add on the subdivision part of it. A lot of times we see these types of things come in front of us where somebody's already going to be building something in a lot in an HOA. Everyone in the HOA is complaining about what's going to be built. What I'm hearing here is a lot is now going to be created. There's no plans to build on it yet. So just a suggestion for the HOA, buy the lot.
Well, that's an interesting comment. We've had several come in here, and it's capability and feasibility and all kinds of other things, but that's always been a wooded area or whatever it happens to be, and they can't take it down. They can't cut the wood down. Well, Yes, they can. They bought it. You could have bought it. Why didn't you have the money? Okay, but everybody has a right for their property, and our job is not to preclude a homeowner's right. But when I first read this one, it was a little bit of like, I think I told it to Mark, I said, I feel like Solomon and split the baby here. I'm just trying to get a feel for what's going on, and I'm feeling some tension of dynamics here, and I've heard this and seen that, and went over there and drove and measured and everything, and I would concur. I don't believe that the standard for vacating no benefit to the public has been established. I'm comfortable with making that decision in the first place, but it's a matter of degree, and Chris, I think for me, it was your comment, it's no. It's NO, no public benefit, and I can't get to the no public benefit here. Conversely, I can see pretty clearly, or at least I'm hearing pretty clearly, there's some very unresolved issues amongst the neighbors. Although you are all sitting there pretty civilly together, maybe it's all in one, but I appreciate, let me tell you, from last year, the year before, we had the police here 3 times and got escorted to our car a couple times. So, and to the gentleman who's been at the P&Z level and done that, you understand what that's like. It's no fun. We're trying to do the best for everybody here, but I hear some real issues that are unresolved, and they're, as noted, ours not to fix. But if in fact there's no insurance on the sidewalk and it's a private piece of property with a public easement, I wouldn't want to own that liability either. That makes complete sense to me. So my message would be, is there a way you can figure out how to solve those problems and make it work? But there's some really significant issues that need to be resolved. Maybe this is too plain and simple. When my kids didn't get along, I put them in, we had a big front closet. And it's like, you're going in there and you're gonna work it out, and I'm not gonna let you out until you figure out a way to work it out. I'm not telling you all that, but I've done that. I literally have done that, call my kids and ask them. But
They're all healthy and fine.
yeah, they've developed into actually pretty functional adults, and I'll say maybe because of that. But anyway, I am of that same persuasion. I think the commission has kind of come pretty much uniformly to the agreement that it makes sense for the plat to proceed, but the easement should be retained. And if somebody wants to make a motion to that effect, I think we're at a point where we could vote on that. Anything else to add by staff or no? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know how to.
Number 3.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve case number 24-032, choosing option 3 of the staff's recommendations.
I would second that.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve, I don't have it in front of me, I moved it over, 24-032, subject to staff recommendation number 3. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Thank you. Case 24-032 is recommended for alternative 3 to the city council approval. Okay. All right. Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. Our next case on the agenda, case 2446. This is another final plat and replat. This is Cumberland Square 5th Edition. Background, the applicant is Shirka Momula. This area currently contains 2 buildings. Harrington's is part in the southern building. I think Fresh Blends is in the northern building just off of 18th Street and Cumberland Square Drive. The proposed plat would be to split configure lots, which would be on each building's process. Each building would be on their own lot. Current uses are retail, restaurant, and bar, as mentioned. The future land use map designates the area as community commercial, and the current zoning is C2 Community Commercial District. All the proposed uses and the plat are consistent with the future land use map and the zoning. The replat meets the bulk standards of the C2 district. Each lot will be accessed via an existing curb cut onto Cumberland Square Drive. No easement is shown on the plat. A plat note identifies a previous internal access agreement between lots and shared parking between the lots. Given the plat note, sufficient off-street parking exists on site for all the uses currently on site. Given that, staff recommends approval of case 2446, final plat for Cumberland Square 5th edition, and I can take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Taylor. Mark, anything since presentation? Nope. All right, questions and comments regarding this matter from the commission? Pretty straightforward. Anyone in the audience with regard to this matter? Nope. All right, we'll come back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve case number 24-046, subject to staff recommendations.
Second.
Okay, we'll give the second to Corey. We have a motion and a second to approve case 24-046, subject to staff recommendations. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. 24-046 is recommended for approval. Okay, Taylor?
Next case on the agenda is 24-049, Highland Ridge 3rd Edition, another final plat and replat. For those that don't remember, this is the Forest Grove, Devil's Glen addition, commercial at the corner, transitioning into townhomes, and then this is the single-family portion we're discussing. The applicant is E&A Enterprises LLC. The final plat the replat proposes one lot. That one lot would combine the current lots 1 through 7 and associated outlots in the second edition. The purpose of this replat, due to bid costs for excavating, filling, and constructing the infrastructure on this portion of the development were too high. The developer is proposing to create one temporarily undevelopable lot, that's on the plat, it's a plat note, and in effect phasing this subdivision. I will note all infrastructure outside of this lot, outside of those blue lines will be constructed, so I'm talking about the roads, so those roads will still be constructed prior as part of the development of all the other single-family lots in the subdivision. The future land use for this area is neighborhood light. The zoning is R1 single family. Both are consistent with the future land use map, and the proposed uses are compliant with the zoning. We have the Highland Ridge 2nd Edition. So this area over here is what we're talking about. Lots 1 through 7 and the outlots 1A and 2A required significant grading and stormwater infrastructure that's separate. Stormwater required for the lots to the east and south. So this portion is in effect kind of self-contained, with the remaining lots utilizing other stormwater infrastructure. So I wanted to make that point. The proposal that meets the bulk standards, of course, and per the plat note, want to reiterate, no development will be allowed as if this plat is approved. Another plat would be required prior to develop this lot. So they would need to come back, or whoever owns it, to come back, replat it. R1 has to meet the R1 bulk standards. The road alignment would be the same because those roads are going to be there. Staff would note, leaving the area of lot 1 over here in the proposed plat as undeveloped should not negatively affect surrounding properties. Currently, there's a culvert underneath Forest Grove, and stormwater is flowing from north to southwest-ish. So that's still going to happen. All of that development that's happening to the east, that's being contained by separate infrastructure. I can take any questions. Staff recommends approval of case 2449. I can take any questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to recuse myself.
Yes, sir. Noted. Thank you. Mark, anything?
No, good job, Taylor. Just, I want to kind of hit some highlights just for people in the audience or that may be watching at home. So this is not a rezoning. Use stays the same, not contemplating a change in use. It will be residential. They just are trying to phase out their development, and by putting this all on one lot, kind of reserving it, it makes that easier for them from an infrastructure build-out standpoint. So that's what they're doing. This is not a change, as more of a phase-in approach.
Okay, makes
That
sense.
was a good job of iterating that, but I just kind of want to punctuate it a little bit.
Good. Thank you. Questions, comments from the commission? Anyone in the audience? Yes, sir. We wondered what you were here for. Good.
Finally.
Yeah.
My name is Mark Cooper and my wife, we live at 6750 Jakes Lane, right on the corner of Forest Grove and Jakes Lane. Can you take it back? Right there. If you go to the left, right there on the corner, it would be the southwest corner. You're right there is our house. Yeah, we were a little concerned about what's going on across the street. And there's a huge gully there, which you talked about. So we were concerned with what was going to be happening. Can you tell me where that road is going to come out, the new road?
Sure.
Out of the subdivision?
Yep, so this is and you actually can see it on the aerial, but this is the proposed road alignment. It's a continuation of Blackbird and Cardinal, and I can't remember this road name, and a cul-de-sac.
Taylor, so it will align with Genesis Way.
Yeah.
Bingo. That answers my question. I just was wondering if my
Right
corner
there,
was gonna
yeah.
become an intersection there.
Oh, you dodged the bullet. Yeah.
Done deal.
All right.
Perfect.
No other concerns.
Yay.
You waited a long time for that
Thanks, Brent.
answer.
Now I can go eat.
Yeah, I was going to take her out to dinner now, so
Thank you.
Thank
appreciate you coming. Thank you. All right, that was the audience. I'll come back to the commission then.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for approval of case 24-049, subject to staff recommendations.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve case 24-049, subject to staff recommendations. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. 24-049 is recommended for approval, which takes us to, oh, good, all right.
All right.
Cycle.
Welcome again.
Thank you.
So our community development intern, Jacob Knepp, will be presenting this one, so go ahead.
This is case 24-048 for 1431 Kimberly Road. This is a site development plan. So background, applicant Mark Maurer, doing business as O'Reilly Auto Parts, has requested a site development plan. It is located at 1431 Kimberly Road, and it is going to go in an existing building currently occupied by Burlington, formerly Burlington Coat Factory. It's roughly 79,000 square feet. The site plan proposes to demise the building into 3 separate units of roughly equal size. And O'Reilly Auto Parts will occupy the northern portion. Burlington, the current business operating there, will occupy the southern unit, and a future tenant will occupy the middle unit. For future land use and zoning, the future land use map designates this area as community commercial. It is zoned as C2 or general business district.
Community commercial, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Community commercial. The proposed use and site plans are consistent with the future land use and zoning map. This is a site plan. So O'Reilly Auto Parts is defined as retail use, which is permitted in the community commercial district. Exterior alterations include a new sidewalk landing, new loading ramps, new door entrances, and the addition of some ADA parking for handicap parking and a new dumpster enclosure. The existing landscape currently on site is sufficient for the proposed use. The proposed sign location is currently located off-premise,
Yeah.
but it will need to be moved on-premise to adhere to city code. It is currently shown on the adjacent lot.
Yeah, and I can add to that. Currently, the sign is shown off-site, so staff is recommending to have the applicant work with staff to maybe find either a shopping center sign or something that adheres to our sign code.
So are you working on the appearance of the sign or the location of the sign?
Purely the location of the sign is the issue, yeah, and it's shown right here.
Yeah.
So,
That's at the former
By the fireworks.
Blockbuster, right?
yep, correct.
So the plan proposes usage of existing entrances, but also constructing additional entrances. The overall site contains a total of 355 off-street parking spaces, which meets code requirements. It proposed moving ADA parking spaces to be in conformance with code requirements. And the additional 2 units also require sidewalk and ADA spaces alterations. And a dumpster location for the middle unit will need to be identified. This is a rendering of the elevation of the proposed auto parts store. The staff recommendation. Staff recommends approval of case number 24-048, site development plan for 1431 Kimberly Road with the following conditions. Remaining units shall be required to have dedicated ADA parking spaces and entrances meeting code requirements. 2, remaining units shall have dedicated refuse locations. And 3, any proposed signage shall be on-site and meet city sign code.
And I just want to verbally amend that number 3. There's some options there, but if it's on-premise signage, it needs to be on-premise, but there's some options for different types of signage. For, like, we have a shopping center sign, which might be an option for this case.
Okay. All right, thank you, Jacob, appreciate it. Mark, anything to add?
No, I've talked about the sign a lot here. I guess what we're saying, let me clarify even more. The signage proposed is a no-go, but we want to work with those property owners. There's multiple businesses there. We think we have some ideas to how maybe improve everybody's signage for the whole area. It's a little bit older commercial development, and we have some ideas of how we might make that work.
Good.
So I think any approval would not include that sign location, but we'll work with them on a sign location in the future.
Okay, great, thank you.
As currently shown, the lot lines, and this is an older development, but the lot lines stop on the black dashed line, so really they'd be contained for any on-premise signage within there, but that's not the entrance to the, you're kind of interior, so it's kind of a tricky
Yeah.
situation, but there are some current shopping center signs that are pretty full. There's a lot of businesses. This is adding businesses to here, so there's some opportunity maybe to look into that. And a shopping center sign is what you see with multiple business entities on that. And we have one already there, and I think to the west off of Kimberly as well. So.
Thank you. Questions and comments from the commission?
I
Can
do.
you- Yeah, go ahead, Ann.
I do have a comment/question. That's a great slide for my question. Thank
Mine
you,
too, so
Taylor.
good, yep.
There's a very funky traffic flow through this area and a circle that made sense at one usage and no longer makes any sense whatsoever. What would be the opportunity for that to be reviewed and changed, and whose responsibility would that be?
I'll defer to our city engineer.
That would all be private property.
I understand that.
Unfortunately, so the city would not really, unless there was a really obvious safety issue, and some form of an accident history, which unfortunately on private property generally doesn't get reported. I don't even know if we can issue a report on private property. Not much of an opportunity. I think it would take a whole scale rework in terms of site plan to where we could then reconsider, not just a change in use within the building.
Yeah, they're not even changing the building footprint of any consequence here.
And I'll
No.
note it's a little blurry, but you can, if you've been to the site, or if I zoom in, the condition of the drive aisles, the landscape islands,
very
it's
good.
it's really top notch. So that's not the issue. It's the general flow is a bit
The flow, or
confusing.
lack of flow, maybe.
In a perfect world, if I were in charge
You are right now.
for this
Take
moment,
it.
and in a fairy tale, didn't we have a fairy tale
Yeah,
earlier today?
You're living it right now.
The Pizza Ranch isn't even part of this,
No.
Nope.
but where that circle is, there should be another ingress due south onto Lincoln Road. And that would make it make sense. But what happens, and I'm guilty of it, you come in the road by Pizza Ranch and you want to go to Dunn Brothers, you just go catty corner through the whole parking lot. It's train wreck. The whole thing is a train wreck. And that's not what we're here for. But
And almost, Taylor's slide right there, almost all of what you just said is actually off this lot as well. When you look at the actual property
Right.
line. So yeah, it would
Right.
take a pretty large rework.
somebody spent a lot of money to make that, and it's totally dysfunctional.
Staff would note that the addition of businesses here, so you'll have an O'Reilly Auto Parts, a future tenant with significant square footage, and then Burlington will retain roughly 30,000 square feet. So you're going to have increased usage of the current site that might help kind of direct traffic towards the actual drive aisles versus kind of jumping around.
Basically cutting off your ability to go straight through.
Enjoy it while you can, Ian.
Follow the traffic
Yeah,
pattern.
now I'm on public record. That's probably not good. So when Burlington is doing their work or this other tenant, will we revisit this, or is this the only time we're going to see it?
This would be so this is a change of use, kind of, the O'Reilly has been highlighted. The owner is planning to demise, shrink Burlington. We've done similar site change of use reviews.
Like at Hobby Lobby?
Hobby Lobby, we've done it at the, Bettendorf Office Products is a good example. Staff feels that the conditions shown here would allow the future applicants to apply for a building permit. Those all have to be reviewed, building plans.
Okay.
This is just the very
Right.
top level, really limited exterior alterations are occurring, or footprint-wise. There are, of course, doors and some
I'm
loading
sure it'll
docks,
be
but-
a big cosmetic improvement to that building and that area, which I'm all in favor of. All right, thank you for letting me say
Can
my
you go
piece.
back to the slide that Ann started on? There we go. So what there, do we have essentially parallel handicap parking with those? I've got three that are, I'll call it north and south,
these
and we
two.
got two that are east and west, if I don't know what my bearing, yeah. Three going north and south, and two, are they back-to-back handicap? I've never seen something like that.
Sam's Club. has
Sam's
that.
Club
Walmart
has the
Sam's Club
exact same.
has the
Oh.
exact same
Walmart
thing.
has it.
Yep.
All right, now I know of what you speak. Okay.
I don't like it.
There you go.
No, it doesn't work.
They meet code.
No, and then over on the right, the little nub sticking out, is that the dumpster?
Right here,
Yeah.
correct.
So how, if there's a car parked in that space next to it, how do you use that dumpster? Why is it, I guess it's that way to make room for the garbage truck to drop it?
Yeah, that one of those spaces isn't gonna work. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll crosshatch out one of the
Come
spaces.
from
Okay.
that way, maybe.
And then dumpster related, the next two need to find a place for a dumpster. What will they do theoretically? Because we're putting a burden, like they'll have to have their own. Where would they go?
As per the staff recommend, or conditions, the southern unit, that's, the dumpsters aren't noted on here, but they do exist. They're actually dumpster bays, I think.
They're there already?
They're on the south side of the building, but the middle unit will need to identify, I think identify is the correct term, where their refuse is going to go. Whether they have a dedicated or are sharing, I don't know. It really depends on the use there. I think.
Okay.
But the middle unit's unidentified at the moment.
Correct, yep. But Burlington now has significant dumpsters on the south side. Yeah.
Large space there.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else with the commission? Anybody out there? Nope. All right, back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for approval of case 048, subject to staff recommendations, with a pat on the back to Jacob for a good job.
Yeah, nice. Was Corey a second?
There was a
We have
second,
Corey's a
yeah.
second, okay. All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve case 24-048, site development plan, 1431 Kimberly Road. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay. Recommended for approval, which brings up Mr. Hunt. We don't have the pleasure of your presentation that often.
I have to stay in practice, so they make me do one.
Are you feeling a little rusty?
Yeah.
Pull a hamstring.
Jacob going to fill
See if
out
I
a
can find
critique
my
on you now,
presentation.
so,
Let's start
okay.
there. It's the first test. Can I actually find it? I did find it. You're in luck.
Our lucky day.
Taylor had it open for you.
A little punch drunk, sorry. I have a case for you, actually two cases. I'm going to give you, do them both at once if that's okay.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, it's a preliminary plat and a final plat. You're going to be familiar with this area of town. It has come to you before, recently. Cases 24050 and 051. Hopewell Farm, 3rd edition, is the preliminary plat and final plat that's before you. Benny Step, CT Creek is the requesting party. It's a replat of what were just 2 large lots for condoed townhomes. The request here is to go into 29 lots so that each townhome has land available for sale underneath it. So you're moving to a more owner-occupied regime is the intent of the developer and builder in this case. I would note that the most recent site plan had 30 units. This is down 1 to 29. And the very original concept plan at rezoning was actually 31 units, so you're actually -2 if you're keeping score at home. We do have a slight change to the structures, and I want to give you a little more about that. My staff report didn't have that quite as clearly identified. We had some late breaking news on this one, so I will be updating my staff report a little bit with my presentation today. And we do have some minor realignment of driveways that I'll talk about here in a second. But just remember, these 2 lots were really just 2 single lots with condoed regime type units on them, and their proposal is to go to multiple lots. Really, the case history on this started back in 2003 with Hopewell First Edition. That was all of this was Hopewell First Edition. The church came through, cleaved off a piece of it, and built the church that's there now. We have pretty up-to-date aerials, so we actually see the church. And then the townhome subdivision was developed most recently. Is actually under construction. As you can see here, you've got a few of the foundations already in. This is a June 9th photo. So it kind of just walks you through those cases. The most recent was the site development plan for lots 2 through 29, which was this area. And now we're going to focus right on the middle part and break that up even more. Planners, we always go back to our comprehensive plan, future land use, zoning, and uses. They all need to align, and they do, and we're not proposing any changes here. So we're all still in alignment, no change of use. It's really the underlying property lines that we're talking about. Here's your preliminary plat. Should look familiar, but you're gonna see property lines where there were none before. So 29 lots, again, that's a -1 for the most recent site development plan, -2 from the original concept at rezoning. I would say the preliminary plat materially conforms to the original zoning concept and current site plan. Overall area per unit is met or exceeded, so we have a bulk standard of 3,000 square feet per unit. They're above that. In fact, they were at 31 or 32, and they must be 33 or 34 now. Doing math on the fly, now they removed 1 unit. This is a new drawing received today, so you don't have this drawing in your packet. And what's not in your packet, or what's different from what's in your packet, is right here. They took out a unit right here to meet some side yard setback requirements that we had a little bit of a pinch point with. Staff would note that there are some interior lots. Hard to zoom in, but maybe in this area, over here as well, there are some interior lots that are slightly smaller than are allowed by code. We're talking from 50 or 60 square feet to around 100, 200 square feet total on those interior lots. The applicant could propose to kind of flare out the edges of the lots to resolve that. That's bad practice in planning. We don't really like odd-shaped lots. We would prefer to steer them towards the Board of Adjustment, and staff at this time has a positive viewpoint of a Board of Adjustment action in favor of that, just for those minor encroachments, if you will, into the total lot area that's required of 2,400 square feet per lot. And they actually, by doing this, have cost themselves 1 unit. If they left it the other way on 2 big lots, they would gain back a unit and go back to the condo regime. So from a density, overall density standpoint, the code is working in quote, our favor, if you will.
Okay.
And then I'll just talk about the driveway realignments. So they were originally drawn as kind of individual driveways. I'll show you a picture of that in a second. Now they're grouped together. To me, this looks like a little bit of snow storage doing it this way. Probably doesn't make much difference overall. It's a little tight in here, but it does work. Here's the previous preliminary plat on the most recent site development plan. So you had a 4-unit complex here. This is now down to 3. And then, of course, the units were individually drivewayed. I just want to point out, we're not talking about changing anything on the exterior. So this north-south group of homes here, not changing. And then here, also not changing. Only talking about this area in the center. So here's your new final plat. You can see the property lines a little bit better. I will say there's 6 or 7 that we're gonna have to take the Board of Adjustment on those interior lots to get approval. So this would be conditioned. Before going to council, the Board of Adjustment made a positive approval. And just to show you that previous final plat, kind of driving the point home, you had 2 big lots and we're dividing those up. Nothing changing on the outside area at all. In fact, that's not even contemplated in the new plat. It's just shown here for your your memory's sake. So we do have new elevations, and this is what they look like. So the big change here in the developer's contemplation is that going to a for-sale home, they needed a 2-car garage. It was a 1-car garage before, so that changes the design. A pro of a 2-car garage is the additional parking. We do have limited parking on street because of the design of the subdivision. So you have that 2-car driveway and then of course the 2-car parking in the garage. So there is potential for more parking off the street, removing that parking concern from the street, especially when we're concerned about plowing and things like that in the wintertime. And here's your floor plan. You got about a 1,200 square foot home to be sold, if you will, per the developer's intention. The contrast of what was originally proposed in the previous site plan is here, a little more architectural detail, but it was a single unit parking. So 1 less parking spot on the driveway and 1 less parking spot inside. Functionally, maybe not as good of a deal for trying to keep cars off the street in the wintertime, although the architectural detail is probably, for some, maybe more attractive here with a little more glazing. But all in all, I think functionality is good. And we didn't have a lot of discussion. I went back and looked. We didn't have a lot of discussion about architectural detail on these interior units. We did on the exterior units. We did when we talked about these. We were very specific on those. We did not spend a lot of time contemplating that on lots 2 and 3 in the previous site plan and plat. And so I would note that. I don't feel that there's a material difference because we didn't specify that to the developer at the time. We really did on these, as I think you'll remember, but not so much on 2 and 3. I have a staff recommendation that to approve both cases, if you will, and I will say that these conditions apply for both the preliminary plat and final plat. Board of Adjustment must approve a variance for each of the lots that does not meet the 2,400 square foot minimum lot area. They'll need to record a restrictive covenant requiring lawn maintenance to be performed by the homeowners association for all lots in the subdivision. That's to keep the development, this functioning the same it was originally proposed. When it was first brought to you, it was condoed. So all that lawn maintenance and all that care was gonna be handled in that way. And in the way this is situated and with the kind of the tight boundaries, we wanna have that be one unit that's taking care of all that, prevent code enforcement issues down the road. And then we also want to remove any structures from those side yards, rear yards. The developer's in favor of this as well. That would have been required under the condo regime. You wouldn't have had pools and fences, and we want to protect that again in this new regime. And so we'll have a restrictive covenant requiring no pools, fences, or gazebos. And I would note the word fences is going to be added into my staff report because it was left out previously and caught by our chairman. So that is my staff recommendation. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Now is when I'd look over and ask you if you had anything to add, but you're here, so you've given us.
One of the other guys.
Yeah.
Ask Matt.
Jacob, does he have anything to add?
He got most of it.
Did he do okay?
Nice work.
Yeah, he can have a review tomorrow, so good. Thank you, Mark, appreciate that. All right, questions and comments from the commission with regard to this matter, or these 2 matters?
I think the changes that were made today answered all my questions. I guess I did have one. Can you go back to the floor plan?
The new
There you
floor
go.
plan here?
Yeah. Do you know how many square feet this is and what the change in square footage is from, oh, there it is. Thank
Yeah,
you.
1227 square
1200,
feet. And I
okay.
think it's very similar to what was proposed before. Oh, you're gonna make me do math.
Wow, I'm going to be impressed, Mark.
I can't read well enough,
That's okay. I just,
but it's getting,
22 times
they're gonna be
38.
within 50 or 60 square feet of each other. It's gonna probably be, you're giving up that single car garage. You know, what you're trading now is a 2-car garage. You're giving up some living space on that first
Yeah,
floor.
it's a lot of
for the
space to give
car.
up.
Oh, it's such an American thing to do, by the way. So it is more car-oriented development, as Taylor and I talked about previously.
Thank you.
Maybe it pains me to say it, but also having more car-oriented development, so you have more places to put cars, keeps them off our street, and we have limited on-street parking, so there is a trade-off there.
And I'm assuming the entrance to the 2 units on either end is from the side,
I think it's on the side, yeah,
okay?
by the way these look here, so this is a
Porch,
first
I
and
see it.
second.
They don't show a walkway to it.
No.
Why don't you leave
And
that
this
up there
would be-
then?
Outside
This would be
unit,
an
so this is the unit on
interior.
the outside, so it's porched. So this is an in unit.
Yeah.
And so you're entering here.
And then the middle ones, you come in between the garages apparently.
Yeah, so you have more of a sheltered entry there.
When they all look the same and the lights are out at night, how are you gonna find your house? Yeah.
How, I have a question on 58 and 59. They seem to be facing each other.
I'm sorry, I'm not tracking. Lots 58 and 59?
58 and 59, the one on the corner on the right side, the northeast. If you go to the detailed plan that you just showed with the driveways and,
Yep.
yep, there you go. Just feels like they both face each other, don't they? And same with
Hey.
54,
59?
Where's
55,
59? I don't see
Yeah,
it.
58 to
so
49, you meant?
58 and 59.
looks like they have
No
entry.
59 anymore. There's no
I see
59?
57,
gone.
58, I
Oh,
don't see 59.
okay, maybe I'm looking at a different one here. So it's that north.
This does show a 59. Or what was in your packet?
In my packet, it was 59. It's 57 and 58, and I think it is 50
I
and
wonder if that's the old drawing in your packet, so
Yeah.
we addressed some of those today with the developer.
Let me look at the packet one. Hang on.
anyways,
Oops.
just probably flipping the
Yeah.
plan or something, but it just feels like both are facing each other. And
Yeah.
Oh, in here is what he means, in this.
Here,
right
is
in
there, yeah, but that's gone, is there a gap between
It looks like
57 and
it
58? The
just
numbering
changed the
changed.
numbering, But it's the same condition.
So here's 57 and 58.
And what's in between them?
I don't know what that is. We do
That
have
just-
the
Are they
engineering.
separate buildings?
that
So that-
just text
That
that
might
is
be
coming
text
out.
labeling. I don't think that's actually
Oh.
gap. I think that's text labeling.
Okay.
Like there is over
Of
on
that lot line?
49 and 50?
It just got
It just got
continued down.
laid
a
over
little
the
farther.
entranceway
Yeah.
there.
What I think
Okay.
that is.
Mark, can you go back to the floor plan just real quick? It's not specifically in scope, but I just noticed on there, I mean, it says 18 by 19 two-car garage. That, I mean, 20 by 20 used to be tight. 18 by 19, do we have any standard of what a two-car needs to be to make a two-car, as long as you got a two-car door that counts as a two-car?
Yeah, I assume so.
That is tight.
Well, they're not gonna need a lot of yard equipment because they have any.
Oh, well, true.
Yeah.
They better not drive an SUV or two. Yeah,
The dumpsters will be sitting outside.
Good point.
yeah, the garbage cans, that's a real concern, actually.
Where will the garbage be?
Yeah, you can't park a car and two cars and have your garbage cans in there for sure. Because that's gonna be a 16-foot door, That leaves you 1 foot on each side of your door. How you can even open your car in there, but yeah, anyway, it's not our purview, but that looks scary to me. All right, any other comments from the commission regarding this development? Anyone out there? No. All right. We need to take these as two? We probably should.
I
Yeah.
think that'd be best.
Ann?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Here we go. Go for it.
I recommend approval of case 24050 and
We
051.
got to take them separate. So just do,
Separately.
One at a time.
yep.
I recommend approval of case 24-050, subject to staff approval.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve case 24-050 preliminary plat. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Thank you. 24050 is recommended for approval.
Mr.
Next
Chairman-
one?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of case 24-051, subject to staff approval.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve case 24-051 replat, 5019 Hopewell Avenue. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. 24-051 is recommended for approval, which takes us to commission update, sir.
So last night you had your third and final reading of your comp plan, your
Yeah.
downtown master plan, and your zoning ordinance transition piece. Go from the future land use map that we have now and get it to adopt or connect with the new code. So a big thank you to everybody. We probably need to have drinks at some point, but what a lot of work. Taylor, Lisa, Greg, appreciate all their work and yours as well.
For sure. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? No? We're adjourned.
Thank you.